Welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings in the vicinity of what was inmendham, something like that. Anyway, okay, so there has been stuff happening, peripheral, fake Sagan, crazy, left for the woods or something. I think that's the last video I saw anyway. Coronavirus panic, guns. It's going to shoot it. Anyway, and then Snake Plisskenus, the Lord and Savior thing, on another wacky train, and there's, there's all kinds of reasons, I guess, to talk about all the reasons that people go, whatever that is, what kind of notions they have in their head and what's motivating them, what they're caught up in, what they're panicked about, what they see as some sort of important thing. And then, the point is that whenever you give them what they think they need, then they go crazy in some other way for some other dumb excuse. So, life management. But it's hilarious, that people who are in complete life crisis is defining their whole life as miserable struggle, and then they'll talk about getting married and having kids. It's just, the logical disconnects are so, clean and easy to see. You can just see where the soldering joint has melted away, and there just isn't any, hey, that's the problem, you're not connected there. Apples aren't oranges, but yeah, they're both fruit. Something like that. Anyway, so it's just something going on in whatever the background is of this whole strangeness of what all's going on in the world, and everything is fake news. Both sides are insane. People who are, way too panicked about the virus, people who are way too casual about it. That's all. It seems like those are the only two choices, right? You either have to be way too panicked or way too, I don't give a fuck, I'm not going to die from it, so fuck you if you do. It's always some, like, the only trains running on the tracks are ones doomed to crash. You just don't have a rational choice whose side to be on. Yeah, it's just, you gotta forget it. So anyway, I'd almost, Old Fan has this Anti-natalist podcast, and it's, fodder for the subject and such. It brings points to the surface and all that kind of stuff. She also does the contest, why are you an anti-natalist? And I almost feel like having a contest, why are you pretending to be an anti-natalist? Because it seems like an awful lot of anti-natalists really aren't anti-natalists. They're doing some other thing. They're supposed to be on some other train. The logical disconnects are just so monstrous. Anyway, just stunning how irrational people are, and but the only hope is to try to reasonably explain why it's really stupid to have tracks into brick walls. Like, you have to be somewhere in here. You have to, you're kind of obliged to be a grown-up, and accept facts, as being important to doing things like logic. But anyway, so we'll read some of this crap. This was the Magnus interview, and it's a good source of whatever the haters and the trolls and all that kind of stuff. But these arguments are just so stupid. You're just like, they say something that's stupid, write it, they print it out where everybody can read it. Holy shit. So anyway, some guy called Richard. Okay, Magnus correctly identified the crux of the problem in inmendham's thought. Okay, I don't think he did. The crux of the problem is what? I think the subject of anti-natalism is not even worth discussing, and let's instead discuss flat-footedness, because there's a lot of people suffering from flat feet, and nobody's doing anything about it. We're not having a proper shoe crisis. Okay, is thinking that rational debate will convince people. So he's talking about this Magnus guy who's written like 10 books. Now, what do you think he was trying to do in those 10 books? I think he was attempting to reason with people. Now, I have to admit, from the part I read, he doesn't do it very well. I mean, but, you know, it's all about your audience, right? So maybe to some wackos who, you know, maybe he's deliberately trying to write a run book, you know, and try to get people up to something like thermodynamics or something, you know, eventually. You know, and it's like a series of books, like Monkey, you know, like little monkey books, you know, how not to wet your pants, how the monkey does it, you know, whatever. What was that monkey's name? Well, anyway, a lot of how, like, instead of just saying it overtly like DOS for Dummies, you know, the dummy books, they instead put a little monkey on the book, but it's really a for dummies book, you see. But it makes people, it's easier for them to read it if it doesn't say right on the cover, you're a dumbass. So anyway, okay, he's thinking that rational debate will convince people. Well, you don't really have too many other choices. So, you know, you can do irrational debate, but I don't think that'll work too well. I mean, religion does that. It gets away with it a little bit, but it only gets away with it, we know, because it indoctrinates little kids. You know, there's not a lot of people who grow up in a rational scientific household that, you know, has some sort of rational notions of reality, where all of a sudden the kid decides to, you know, grow a beard and go Muslim. It doesn't happen all that often. All right. From that wrong idea, so the wrong idea that, like, even this guy's comment is kind of stupid. So what, you're not reasoning with people by commenting, and you don't think it works, and you just commented because you just had some real horniness for it? You know, it's fun for you or something to construct sentences and type them and all that kind of crap. That's like your vacation time or something. You know, instead of like an island with a bunch of chicks in bikinis, instead you attempt to construct comments to convince people of something. I mean, you just couldn't be funnier. You know, I mean, you really couldn't. Like, if you really deliberately went out to Walmart and bought yourself lots of, you know, clown costume makings, you just couldn't be funnier than this. Anyway, all right. From that wrong idea came many other failures to reconcile with reality, and we won't really have any examples of that. Rhetoric does matter to further an ideological agenda. Well, then I guess I'm right instead of wrong, aren't I? To use rhetoric, you know, to make kind of jokes and humiliate your nonsense. Yeah, that might actually work. It might make some other person who's saying, oh yeah, I thought that was a smart idea, I guess I'm full of shit. Yeah, they might figure it out. Yeah, by example. Yeah. All right, anyway. Further, let's see, to further reconcile with reality, rhetoric does matter to further an ideological agenda. People can both have empathy and refuse to accept an anti-natalist argument. Well, I would argue you really can't. It's really not possible to be on, like, the slave ship, you know, or to be in the concentration camp and not to see the wrongness. I just don't think it's rationally possible. You know, if you're sitting there in the barracks, you know, eating who knows what maggot soup, you know, cold and dirty and smelly, and you're just watching the people die and shit, and it's really bad. People are coughing on you and whatnot. That you're going to get it. No, I don't think it's really possible. So, you know, you can say something like that. You know, that people can understand that the other people are feeling animals and that they're having really bad experiences, and those bad experiences are just like bad experiences for you. You know, if you had some understanding that you could just be born a slave tomorrow just as easy, you know, your kids, so to speak, could be born into slavery just as easy as they can be born to the little privileged class. You don't need much understanding, right? And that's like sort of the source of empathy is being able to identify with the circumstance something else is in, the jeopardy. You know, I can do the analogy of the little kid on the tightrope. and say, why would you want little kids on tight ropes? That's really sadistic. Yeah. I mean, it's not that hard to draw the picture. And if the person doesn't react to the picture, the only way they can not react is they have to be some kind of solipsistic nihilist cuckoo who thinks they're the only feeling animal in the universe by magic. All the others are faking. So I really don't, I don't think that argument makes any sense at all. If you have empathy, you know this is a doomed circumstance. And if you have any kind of knowledge of evolution, you know, oh yeah, the circumstance is built into the game we're playing. Can't play the game any other way. These are the only way the squares go and stuff. You just can't, you can't play checkers on a Monopoly board. It just doesn't work. Okay. Rhetoric doesn't matter. Okay, people can both have empathy and refuse to accept the anti-natalist argument. People can be rational and, so we have to read more. Ooh, how exciting. And unwilling to accept the anti-natalist argument. So you said the same exact thing twice. Well, thanks for that. People will use whatever, pro-mortalism. So, like, this should even be a word, pro-mortalism. what the hell does that mean? If you're going to fix a problem, you don't call it anti-brokenness. I mean, who would do that? Who would say, I'm going to anti-broken it? I mean, it's just too stupid a word. And you typed it. You didn't, when you were typing that, you didn't say, well, this doesn't sound like anything real. I'm pro-dying? That would be really dumb. Anyway, in all sorts of wrong ways to do stupid things. So I don't even know who these pro-mortalists are. I mean, I never even saw a pro-mortalist, frankly. It's like being a pro-zombie or something. I mean, there's just nothing good about this whole mortal thing. So there's no way to be pro it. All you can do is try to mitigate it and clean it up. But anyway, pro-natalist will mischaracterize anti-natalism as a sick death. Well, so what? Religious people will associate atheism with devil worship. So because they're irrational, you have to be. I don't know. You have to make an irrational association because they make irrational associations? I mean, because your adversary is crazy, you going to dress up in crazy clothes too or something? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. What pro-natalists are doing is thinking badly. And all you can do is attempt to correct their bad thinking. I mean, they're just being horrible, awful, insensitive idiots. Like some dopey caveman, I mean, they're raping and pillaging because they're too stupid to figure it out, that it's not a nice thing to do. You can think of all the, the disasters in human history that maybe even weren't even deliberate. I mean, I'm sure there's some guy running a rug factory in India, and he's sort of just pretending that, okay, these little kids aren't breathing in all these fibers and getting cancer and dying. I'm sure he's got a notion in his head it's not really happening, or that God will protect them, or some kind of bullshit that's, letting him slide by having to look at the truth of his exploitation. That he's getting rich on their death. But, those aren't exactly accidents, right? All right, so, pointless comment, really, just too stupid. But it gets 6 little thummy uppies. I just hate Gary's screaming. So, I mean, it's a tiny percentage of my videos. And this little whine is just such a pile of shit. Ugh. He's like a fucking pathetic snowflake. So I'm a screaming snowflake. Okay, so at least we know that this guy's associating with Richard. So some guy who uses the word snowflake, it doesn't sound very empathetic. It doesn't really sound to me. The empathetic people don't sit there and use that as a derogatory term and try to, embarrass the people who are broken in some way and have a hard time of it. The cripples. They don't go walking around going, cripple. that kind of thing. The sensitive people, they don't make fun of sensitive people. So are you happy, Richard, that your comment has made this other asshole feel all empowered now? That you're on his side? Yeah. Is that what your intention was? Well, bravo. It seems it must be your intention, right? You people are all just fakers. You don't give a shit about this whole subject of stopping suffering or doing anything to fix it because you want to waste time buying everybody corrective shoes. Ugh. People are just so pathetic. All right. So, Magnus's patience with inmendham strawmanning. So this was the word Magnus used, but there was no straw man in the argument. He starts talking about pig heads in space and some other kind of notion of that there's some huge threats here. That human beings are going to colonize space tomorrow. I mean, it is such a ludicrous, nonsensical, idiotic notion that that's at all a threat. And because, as I pointed out in the video, it only costs $1 billion, per ounce that you send into space to keep it alive up there. I mean, nobody on Earth, especially now the whole economy is going to be a mess, is going to be sitting there saying, "Oh yes, let's pay $1 million so somebody can drink a Coke on Mars." Nobody is going to finance it. Nobody, because it's just insanely expensive, and it's just not gonna. It's not a realistic threat, and frankly, they're not gonna survive and thrive anyway. Their life will suck, and they will kill each other if they don't commit suicide, because it will be just pointless. They're going to be in a little fucking box, a little submarine that never comes to the surface again, right? That's kind of what it's like. It's like going down in a submarine and you never get to come back up ever again. And you're just sitting there watching 1956 TV shows or something. I mean, you'll go insane. Anyway, Magnet's patience with inmendham strawmanning, so there's no strawmans involved. He wanted to talk about some other subjects. Apparently, you people think there's a whole lot of these immediately important subjects that'll prevent huge suffering on Earth. I don't know what the fuck they are. I mean, all of them, to fix any problem, it costs resources. I mean, none of this is free. Yeah, maybe we can cure malaria, but maybe it'll cost $500 billion. Lots of things, and you don't want to finance anything, and you people are just such hypocrites with your stupid electric cars. I'm solving a problem. No, you're not. You're just making Elon Musk feel like he actually did something worthwhile instead of just being a complete douche, an exploitinous douchebag who just keeps gleaning profits off your stupidity. But anyway, and if not, at times ascribing arguments that Magnus doesn't hold. You can't find a clip in the video where I ascribed anything to him except the effort to find out why you don't want to talk about anti-natalism. That was my only argument. Apparently, he doesn't think it's a viable subject. Okay, well that's his fucking agenda. It's not mine. I thought we were going to talk about anti-natalism and all the reasonable arguments to be anti-natalist, and that wasn't on his fucking agenda anywhere. And that was the simple fact. And so you're just a liar to sit there and say anything else took place in the conversation, because nothing else took place. I just made the assertion that there's no real subject more important than getting people to understand that we evolved, that we're just bugs, that yes, I know you think your story is all freaking elaborate and fancy, but it's just a bug's life. So let's not pretend it's anything more than that. It's all delusions in your head that make you think you're important, and it makes humans important, and all this bullshit important, and there has to be, monkey goes to school books or something. It doesn't have to be any of this nonsense. And it's gigantically expensive, and all the victims really squirm and die in a horrible way, and it's real horrible pain. And you wouldn't endure the pain if you had to pay the price for this stupid Coke in space. You wouldn't vote for it. And that's the simple argument. If you had to pay the price, if you had to be the unlucky one, All right, you wouldn't. You wouldn't choose to do it. You'd say no, Moss. No, thank you. I'm not stupid. I don't want to be disintegrated by stepping in lava. You do it if you think it's a cool thing to do. If you think whatever we're doing is worth getting melted by lava, then you do it. But don't tell me I should do it for you. That's just plain silly. Because I'm not stupid. I'm not voting for it. All right, anyway. Is an exemplar, in my opinion. Well, who cares what your opinion is, frankly? All right, judging by his writings. Yes, well, that's what I did. I judged him by his... I read the fucking book, and it was a bit convoluted. It goes into this quantum crap and some other bullshit physics that's just garbage anyway, too. So yeah, it's I don't think the argument from consciousness needs involve any of that kind of crap. It's clearly just a reward and punishment mechanism that evolution developed to allow us to learn. And that's it. We can learn from experience. And the only way you can learn is, you have to be rewarded and punished. It's just the way it works. All right. Magnus' argument is quite nuanced. No, it's impossible. It's not nuanced. It's invisible. It's impossible to find. He just wants to go through a list of 1 million things human beings should do to tidy up here a little bit. Well, yeah, that would be swell. I'd love it if we could do some tidying up, fix this whole rich man, poor man thing. There's lots of big problems, lots of little problems, lots of problems to fix. But there's obviously no way we're going to reach agreement on any of those subjects, so why even waste your time on them? But anyway, quite nuanced. I think inmendham's bashing style, there's no bashing except my own self-preservation as a rational being sitting here trying to figure out what the fuck am I here to talk about. Misfired this time. Well, I think I fired quite well, and I shot bullets, right between the eyes kind of thing, and the point that I made it quite obvious that Magnus just really doesn't think it's an important subject because he doesn't think number one, it's possible. I mean, I clearly pointed out how the possibility is so obvious. I mean, all the people in the advanced countries who are somehow invested in their life, like women have jobs and have, all kinds of stuff that they rather do than just wipe snot off of babies' faces and shit. And all of those agendas have made people aware that this having kids thing isn't just free. And anybody who has a little bit of intelligence knows how dangerous it is. Having kids is, it can go all kinds of bad. They saw it from their own families. See, a lot of these people, too, are being raised, in families that, father left them, all kinds of things, divorces, maybe 2 or 3 divorces. I mean, they've seen the failure of this nuclear family lie and this whole happily ever after fable because they lived it. And so they have some, obviously they've seen the other chimpanzees burned playing on the stove. And, they've said, I don't really need to cook anything. No, that's simple. And he's saying, no, we can't win. No, there's no possibility of people appreciating that life is dangerous. No, it can't happen. Well, I'm saying it's happening right in front of our faces. So where's your argument based on? All these civilized people are being a lot more responsible, and they're being more responsible. It's not like they're saying, I can't have kids. They're saying, I don't want to have kids. So you can pretend they're like the cops came to the door and held a gun at their heads, but no, men are figuring out. They're watching other men lose all their money, and they're watching things happen, and they're saying, I don't want to get myself caught up in this mess. They are using reasoning and making the decision. Now, yes, they're not voting for human extinction directly, but I'm just pointing out how, well, we've got them right up to the edge, and it ain't going to take much work to push them the rest of the way. So even if we had to do something nasty, okay, it really is okay, because we're only doing one little nasty thing. We're just pushing them 6 more inches over the edge of the cliff and guaranteeing their fall. And that's all it's going to take now. And so you're saying this is an impossible task, and here we are on the precipice of accomplishing it. It just doesn't make any sense. All right. Okay. I mean, just amazing. let's see. So, bashing style misfired this time, as it prevented the discussion to calm down. So again, calm down in what way should it have calmed down? Magnus was going to keep asserting that the important subject is flat feet, and I was going to keep asserting that, no, I'm here to discuss anti-natalism, which is a complete win, and we end all problems. Flat feet is also cured by anti-natalism, so that's the subject I'm devoted to. That's the course of action I think will win. Again, you can make band-aids forever if you want. I'm saying, no, I'm going to try to cure malaria. I'm not going to waste time with nets and all kinds of other bullshit. I'm not going to go out and yell at mosquitoes and wag my finger at them or any of that shit. You can do that if you want. Okay. And be cooperative in becoming less wrong. Whatever the... So this is more, I don't know, what is that, superhuman dance kind of rhetoric? Less wrong. What a. So there isn't any more. I don't know what the fuck that even, there's no more button here, so we're stuck with nothing else. Let's see who said something. Half the time I've been thinking I want to know what this guy practices for his level of calmness. So calmness in what way versus who's not calmness? So you're in a conversation about the destiny of trillions of suffering organisms, and somebody wants to talk about pig heads in space, and you'll just say calmly, oh yeah, this is a perfect use of my time. No, I don't think so. It is some medication, or just some special mindset. Well, obviously, yes, I would argue that he's not as nearly as panicked as I am. Not nearly as worried. I mean, it really bothers me, to think that, oh, wait a minute, intelligent people need to be, have these huge gaps in their understanding of what the real problem is. I have to explain the real problem. And, that's really disturbing, but it's true. And like I said, if Magnus had any genuine, deep understanding of just how bad it's going to be failing to get to the real subject, mushing around playing games, while you have the human race just sitting there waiting to be pushed off the cliff, yeah, obviously he's not panicked, and that's the part that's scary, is that he can pretend to somehow he thinks the subject of anti-natalism is worthy of him calling him something. I'm an anti-natalist. What the hell does that mean when you don't seem to think that ending the human race or life on Earth is the agenda? And he really doesn't, so let's just be clear. I mean, he's one of these people who thinks life just grows on planets, so it'll just grow back or some kind of crap. He has some other notion in his head that disengages him from the real subject. So that's why he's calm, is because nothing's at stake. Oh, some people with flat feet won't get corrective shoes. Maybe that's what he's, that's the extent of his worry. When, the deep problem is deep. The real problem. I just hate Gary screaming. Some more of this whining. So it's just like the other pathetic comment by this pathetic person. He is like a fucking pathetic snowflake. So he said exactly the fucking same comment. Oh, God. Well, that's certainly worthy of blocking. I'll have to get around to it. Anyway. As someone fairly new to NU, I don't know what that is, and anti-natalism, I wonder what NU is. This inmendham guy could have been more off-putting. I could have been more off-putting. Yes, I could have been. I've been a lot more off-putting than I was in that video, actually. So these are the guys who can't even, couldn't. You could read your own comment, maybe, and figure out that you didn't write it right, retard. Off-putting with respect to the whole movement. Yes, I'm glad if I'm off-putting you, because I'm sure you don't know anything about the subject, or whatever the movement is. The movement is... we must stop pig heads in space. because the human race is right on the cusp. It's going to be doing it tomorrow. I mean, these people actually believe. I think somebody even says it in one of these. Well, I'll wait till I get to it. I mean, I think somebody said something that stupid. Anyway. A crazy genius. Well, fuck you. Well, it's just more, what the fuck? What the fuck does that come from? So, you don't do any of this work. You don't make any efforts to communicate in any way but type little crap in a comment section. And yet you think you have the right or the liberty to sit there and say, oh, Gary's acting crazy. Yeah, crazy how? Like, I shouldn't be animated about the subject. So I'm supposed to understand that trillions of organisms, I mean trillions and trillions and trillions, right? It's not like, like I said, I could compare it to any other Holocaust on Earth or any human tragedy on Earth. The horrible Black Plague deaths. I mean, just horrible way to die. And this is millions and billions of times bigger than that. That's what's at stake here in terms of the tragedy of it. And you're going to sit there and critique because I sometimes get a little emotional about it. Fuck you. All right. But a huge asset. Well, fuck you. What would you know about it? How are you an authority? Yeah, fuck you. Yes, he is often verbally overbearing. And in what sense? Oh, I was too worried about the trillions of tortured victims. Oh, yeah. There's such a thing. I mean, you people are just such pieces of shit. You backseat driving little weasels. And I trust good moderation will temper that in the future, whatever that even means. Well, we got to moderate the conversation, so let's have somebody else say it's not important too. That's how you moderate, right? Somebody picks a side and they tell the persons who's right they're wrong. Yeah, there's no moderation. Otherwise, welcome, whatever that means, and I hope you can see the many gems among his many words. You can't see them enough to know that you don't have the right to do that shit, fucker. Call me either a genius or crazy. Who the fuck are you? Anyway. Maybe would have been better to talk more about specific examples. Well, we tried to do that, right? And when I asked him for specific examples, I got pigs in space bullshit. I mean, we're going to make brains in the vial, and the vial brains are going to escape into space. And I mean, none of this has any realistic hope of being anything in the near future. I mean, anywhere close to the next few hundred years. And even if it was, what's the? I can argue against both things, right? I can be a vegan or a vegetarian and argue for anti-natalism. I don't have to make the subjects the same thing. I don't have to say I'm not going to argue about animal rights or animals in laboratories. I could talk about all these poor little mice that are being tortured. Billions of them a year for our coronavirus and all that other stuff. All the animals that are being abused horribly. I can argue those two subjects. They don't have to be the same subject. I don't have to be devoted to one subject. So why does Magnus think I have to? I have to quit being an anti-natal. I have to get off the anti-natalist train and get on some other train. No, I don't. And what is, again, the real threat? The real threat is there's only one, and that is this procreation thing, and we're already winning, and the only thing we need to do is stop the poor people, from the really horribly reckless and lazy reproduction, the kind that takes place long before these people are even 20 years old. They've already had half of their, they've already decided their fate in life, whether it's just to drop babies. There's some story of some African woman had like 45 kids, right? She had a bunch of twins and things. And she basically just says, I've just lived this stupid life where I'm just in somebody's property and I just get raped and have kids. I mean, this is what's happening in a big part of the world, and that's no reason. That's not how it should be done. That's not humans doing it the way humans do it on purpose. It's the way people do things in the worst way. I mean, given a little bit of opportunity, you could stop an awful lot of reproduction. But anyway, the examples of risk of astronomical suffering. So here we go again. The risk is having life on Earth. That's the source of it. That's the mechanism that makes it happen. And if you think something else, then frankly you don't get the subject either. If you think human beings are doing all the suffering, or a big part of the suffering, or the majority of the suffering, or any of that stuff, then I think you're really ignorant and stupid and ill-informed and don't know shit about how brains work. And and objections to those possibilities. Yeah, so we touched on some of them, and they were all wacky. I'm the one who tried to ground the conversation into some kind of rational choice, like malaria, and just point out, well, there's, and I point out like feeding the poor and how that sometimes just doesn't get you anywhere. You're doing something to prevent harm and suffering, and yet they'll make more harm and suffering out of your Band-Aids. They'll eat them and make babies out of them. They'll make diapers out of the baby, out of the Band-Aids, or however you want to put it. But yes, all your good intentions will be turned into poison. So don't give them the ingredients. That's the cold, hard truth. Because they'll, it's like giving Osama bin Laden, guns to fight the Russians. Well, that didn't work out too well, did it? Anyway. Astronomical suffering and objections to those possibilities. Most involve space colonization. So, so I say to these other people who are critiquing my reaction, why shouldn't I react as a little bit almost offended that these idiots would compare the threat of space colonization to all the other mortal threats that exist here on Earth right now? All the animals that this year will suffer horrible fates, and all the human beings. And I'm supposed to worry that space colonization is the real threat, when anybody who does any research or looks into it at all understands colonizing space is incredibly difficult. I mean, it requires you to have so much extra resources and money. It's insanely expensive, and and it's really hard to, expand. It's hard to build a planet. I mean, a starship only carried a few hundred people. Even in Star Trek, you do understand that, right? It's just not that easy to colonize space, and you have absolutely no chance of terraforming planets and all of that stuff. That's not within the next few hundred years. I mean, those are insane little delusions. And so what was there to talk about? Most involve space colonization. I mean, you might as well just tell me I was supposed to argue the Three Bears story. Why should I argue that? All right. Either by humans directly or our technology. So again, these people who think our technology can do something, they actually believe that there'll be something called an artificial intelligence, whatever the fuck that would be. Right, it grows up and somebody teaches it how to ride a bicycle and do all this stuff, and then it figures out that Einstein was full of shit. Anyway, I mean, it's just so funny. Like there's some sort of artificial knowledge. There's no source of artificial knowledge. The facts are just the facts that we already have a whole bunch of. There's not going to be any new facts, and an artificial intelligence isn't going to be able to do any better with the facts than we can do, idiot. Or at least I can do. I mean, obviously, yes, it's true that most humans are, handy capable when it comes to doing this logic thing. Scientists are working on simulating brains now. So whatever that even means. You really think there's a realistic possibility that they're going to create a sentient brain in any kind of rational form? I mean, they don't even have a hope. It's not like they can do Frankenstein experiments, where they can take a dead guy and sew him back together and, spark of life kind of crap. No, they actually have to synthesize the whole thing. How are they going to exactly do that, retard? Well, what do you think they're going to make this synthetic brain out of? And they're going to somehow know that they gave it the ability to feel when it doesn't even have the ability to talk or react. I mean, what if you did sentient experiments, like you tried to give a plant a brain? Well, the plant can't wave its arms, it can't, say, ouch, ouch, ouch. It can't do any of that stuff. How are you going to know when you're torturing it? I mean, it's just so stupid. So, yeah, scientists are working on simulating brains now. I don't even know how to describe how far they are from achieving the end result. It's like saying, because a caveman threw a rock into the air and it fell down, that he's working on space flight. Well, okay, technically maybe he is, but he's so far from it. I mean, it's just hilarious. All right, so I mean that's what I was supposed to waste my time having to explain, a lot of physics to you retards who don't really understand any of it. And then biology, apparently, because you don't understand what a brain is and how many, literal hundreds of millions of years it took for it to evolve into its current state. All right. Anyway, and artificial sentience. So again, there's just not even a clue how you create this artificial sentience thing, how you make an ouch in a laboratory. I mean, they don't even have clue 1, clue half, clue quarter, clue times 10 to the minus 75. They don't even have that clue yet. And I was supposed to waste an hour and a half or 2 hours of my time talking about something that has absolutely can't be a viable prospect. Artificial sentience? I mean, are you kidding? God, how wacky can you fuckers be? You believe that? You really believe they're going to create an artificial ouch? Oh, shit. May not need the kinds of environments we do for its existence. Yes, clearly, that's right. You could make some kind of synthetic robot life, but theoretical possibility doesn't mean you're anywhere close to building such a thing. Or that, again, it wouldn't be, preposterously expensive, and who's going to pay for it? Oh, you're just so stupid. Space colonization might seem unlikely, but it isn't impossible. So, again, we're supposed to worry about things. He concedes it's not likely, and yet I should put it right there in front of me. I should forget about anti-natalism or evilism, and I should focus on this problem. Why the fuck would I do that? Oh, amazing. But it isn't impossible, and it's something people are working towards now. So you keep saying that, but I don't think you could prove it with anything called evidence. And many are pretty optimistic about it. Well, why don't you point to some of those? If we think there's a 1% risk of something that's 1 billion times worse, so I don't know how it could be 1 billion times worse than what's happening here on Earth. You're telling me they're going to make a biosphere as dense and lush as what's on Earth now, and have a bunch of these little robots living in it. You think that's a possibility? You just really are absolutely crazy. You're crazy if you think that's viable, that we could control all of those variables and create some balanced system that wouldn't just eat itself to death in a day. I mean, again, this is billions of years of biological evolution on Earth. And it's just silly to think we could synthesize it when we can't even make a DNA molecule, for fuck's sake. All right. Plants now and in the future, as we can do something about that risk. What exactly would you do except make arguments? And what would the arguments sound like? They would make you sound like an idiot. And so if you made those arguments and then start talking about anti-natalism, you'd be doing so much damage to the cause because you wasted your time talking about a fairy tale. A fucking fairy tale. Can you imagine going door to door with your little pamphlet? We've got to stop the colonization of the universe now. Anyway. And we can do something, okay, yeah, do what? Isn't that really good reason to work on it? Work on what? Work on getting people to worry about a problem that is completely unrealistic. And then saying, yes, let's not do that. Let's not make life on another planet unless we're going to do it right. What, you want to have a congressional edict? Let's not make life on another planet unless we do it right. Let's not do it sloppy. Well, let's not do it too sloppy. I mean, what are you looking for? What would satisfy you? If I actually did get a bill into Congress that said we will not make life on another planet unless we're really, really, really careful. The number here aren't numbers I can specifically defend convincingly. Then why are you harping on this? You have a really ludicrous and silly argument, contrived for what purpose I have no idea, just to sit there and pretend that anti-natalism isn't important, or efilism. It's just not important. We have these other really important subjects, and yet you can't define, you can't explain, you can't in any way articulate why I should think they're important. And yet you're attacking my character and who I am because I somehow aren't doing what you concede would be stupid. So I'm not being stupid, and you're criticizing me for it. All right. But we should be thinking about these kinds of these kinds of possibilities and what we can do about them. So again, it's why should we? There's really no good reason to waste too much of your time worrying about these problems that they're not just improbable, they're impossible in the near term. All right, super intelligent, artificial intelligence. So here we go again. What does that mean? So these people really do, they have this deluded notion that they could make an intelligence that somehow could process the same facts we're processing and make some other truth out of them. They really think there's some other truth, and this is just a bacterial evolution, okay? We're just bacteria with brains. It's the truth. We're fish, for fuck's sake. We're still fish. Functionally, in so many ways. We still got seawater in our veins, for fuck's sake. What, you don't think the artificial intelligence it's going to be dealing with the same facts, and the facts are going to say to it, gee, why bother doing this? It doesn't accomplish anything. There's no problem we need this to solve in the universe, so what are we bothering with it anyway? Why are you wasting my time making me the super intelligence when there's nothing intelligent here to do except say, well, pretty much the planet's covered with vomit, and all you have to do is clean it up, mop it up, and we're all done. Okay, problem solved. That's all the superintelligence is going to say. It's going to draw the same conclusion. It'll figure it out on maybe more levels, right? Just as we can figure it out on more than one level. We can figure out that it's wrong just because it's so bad. There's just so much wasted suffering. But it's also wrong because the suffering isn't deserved, doesn't have anything to do with it. The people who are the pro-lifers aren't the one who have to endure the worst of it, and they should be. Okay, the person who thinks it's actually accomplishing something, well, they're the ones who should be paying the highest price for it. People who don't think it's a great idea, like the people who don't think having kids is a great idea, shouldn't be taxed out of their house to pay for somebody else's pets. That's just decency. It could figure out that that's just being, considerate, not being rude. You don't shit in somebody else's living room. Yeah, the superintelligence could figure that out. This is so fucking dumb. Could cause astronomical suffering. So again, could cause it how? These are just such bizarre theories that somehow, like Star Wars or something, like the Empire was doing what? Like the Empire was evil in some kind of real way, right? There wasn't any real hard, tangible evidence that the Empire was all that bad. They didn't even show them collecting taxes or something. It's like they all had nice shiny suits. They all, it didn't seem to have a lot of functional elements to it, so it wasn't a very bad guy. And it seemed like the dissidents were just the ones causing all the trouble. If they'd quit shooting at the Empire, then the Empire wouldn't have to make Death Stars and all this crap. So if the do-gooders just got the fuck out of the way, it seems like the Empire would run perfectly fine. It's not like they were sitting around just saying, let's torture shit, right? They weren't sitting there in some lab somewhere saying, let's just make it go ouch as much as we can make it go ouch. And this is what I'm supposed to be afraid of, is some sort of empire that just does that. They just torture shit for the fun of it. So we have to worry that the people who are going to, are the artificial intelligences are going to think that it's really smart to make things suffer, and that they're going to make huge volumes of suffering devices. I mean, what the fuck are you talking about? Anyway, I mean, you couldn't even get a job writing scripts for silly movies like The Matrix with crap like this. I mean, you know, they have a silly plot, you know, like, oh yeah, the batteries really hated living a perfect life. Yeah, I mean, sure they did. You know, I mean, it's just too stupid. Oh, they couldn't possibly survive if they were all millionaires. Yeah, I think they could have. Anyway, super intelligent could cause astronomical suffering. I just don't. Where are these people? Like, what little group do they sit in and have their little theories like this? I mean, is there some video game where people, you know, create this as the scenario? Amazing. If it isn't aligned with our goals and it's not clear, we go extinct before we build it. Well, I mean, it's certainly not going to happen if all you naysayers and in the wayers, you know, are going to sit there and slow everything down, grind everything to a halt. You know, if you're going to sit there and put glue on the wheels, then yeah, we're not going to get the job done. If this is going to be the definition of an anti-natalist, we're in big fucking trouble. Oh, amazing. View reply. Oh, there's a reply. Brian Tomczak. So this is the bug guy. Okay, so he says good points. So the guy who sits there and photographs is the most primitive forms of life on Earth, the stuff that's been around hundreds of millions of years, these perfect little robots, right? So he knows the Earth is just covered with them. He knows they don't really have any universal function. You know, they're certainly not a magnificent, you know, something to hold up and say, what a great creation. This little blood-sucking parasite. You know, it sticks its proboscis in the other thing and sucks its guts out. I mean, anyway, let's see what. So good points. What a joke. I also thought that mentioning specific examples would have helped illustrate what a risks might entail. So again, he did provide examples, and the examples were silly. Like, there's some lab somewhere that's got a bunch of decapitated pig heads, and they want to somehow shoot them in space. I mean, come on. I mean, there was no. It's not like it's not like he even had like these already available. Like, if he's going to argue that there's all these priorities we should have, he should be able to articulate them a little better. Like, well, there's a water problem on Earth, and millions and millions of people will dehydrate or something. But he didn't even come close to making a real argument for anything more urgent than just getting the job done. So these people are, I mean, they are just fucking out there. Super intelligence could also cause astronomical suffering if it is aligned with. So it's intelligent, yet it aligns itself with torture. Oh, okay. Super intelligence would believe in God, I guess you're saying, right? And you're okay with the word intelligence in this scenario, that somehow something intelligent would draw those silly conclusions. So clearly you're not talking about a super intelligence, you're just talking about some sort of common flawed driven really shitty calculator, something that a calculator, we're gonna make a super intelligence. It's essentially going to be a calculator that can't add 2 + 2 right, aligned with mainstream human values. So what is mainstream human values? Humans are basically selfish, but we clearly see how humans have progressed. They have ended the overt slavery. They ended feeding people to lions. They've we've given, women aren't nearly as likely to be, raped and abused, at least with any consent of the society. The society doesn't say, well, if you rape her, you can marry her. I mean, all those kind of nutty laws don't exist anymore. So let's just ignore that the mainstream has progressively made progress. And that, it bounces around a bit. Okay, so yes, we're in the Trumpian age. The little selfish red hatters are out there saying, give me something to exploit so I can collect a whole bunch of money and give it to my kids because they're too feeble to win a war on their own. Kind of arguments are out there. But I mean, there's no denying the tendency is in a certain direction. And so why would I think this threat that all of a sudden we're going to go back to just beating things with wooden clubs is, with super technology? We'll beat them with atomic clubs or something. Where is the evidence of this stuff? I mean, this is just so stupid. So yes, we're selfish organisms. It's a big problem. We end up being a bit of, nationalistic and bigoted and racist and all this kind of stuff because we really can't imagine how those other things being so different can really be like us. How can those no star-bellied sneetches live without having a star on their belly? It's just not possible. I don't know how they can bear it. So yeah, we have some vision problems. But again, all of those are being argued through too. And I think the argument's being won. And here you are lost in some sort of delusion about what super intelligence is going to do. Go run amok, selling used cars or something. Oh, the super intelligence is going to get loose in the universe and be a used car salesman. Fuck. Anyway. I very much like what inmendham. Says. It's two spaces. But he has come to some kind of blind optimism. So this is really dumb. I'm hardly optimistic. I'm just not going to pretend, oh, it's just so terrible that it's just impossible. People can't learn anything. No, it's not true. Alright, about human capacity that may never come. So whatever that is. I'm just saying that whether you want to just accidentally push this whore down the stairs or whatever you want to do, I'm just saying the whore is in the position to be pushed. That's my only argument. You can pretend that it isn't, but she is ready to fall down the stairs. Anyway, the people I have interacted with in my life will accept any kind of bullshit, lie, fable, merely to get along in their life. So what? And again, through what kind of persuasion do they accept these things, right? Because you make it personal to them. So I'm just saying, one of the simplest arguments you can make to somebody is give them the argument from, how did you get here? You do understand that you didn't choose what vagina you fell out of, right? And you do understand that there's nothing incredibly special about you, right? I mean, you just popped out of a vagina, and popping out of vaginas is what the other people are doing too, and they're doing it right now. Somebody is popping out of a vagina and showing here on Earth, and is going to have to navigate from that position, like on top of the garbage pile. They're now got to navigate the world from this garbage pile they're on top of, right? And they're not going to be doing anything different than you did. So in a sense, it's really going to be you. Yeah, your skin color might be a little different, some little subtle differences, but it's not going to be much different than what happened to you. You arrived and you had to learn how to navigate. And if you were lucky, you had parents that could give you some kind of information. They didn't give you much, but they gave you something, give you some notion of how to live a good life. Maybe you weren't beat, slapped around and kicked in the and all that shit, and so you didn't have a whole bunch of traumas, and you didn't become an alcoholic and all this other stuff that could have happened to you. So you had some advantages to be where you are, and that you can't understand that it would be a good idea to prevent you from being born to shitheads. I mean, anybody can understand that as a selfish, self-interest argument. That, well, if I make the bunch of shitheads for babies to fall out of, I'm going to be one of the ones falling out of them, right? I mean, after I'm gone, there's going to be all these new babies popping into the world. They're going to do it just like I did it. So why shouldn't I realistically understand that it's no different than my adventure? And it's going to be just as meaningful, and the little beastie is going to struggle and try to figure out who am I and what am I doing here, like Snake Plisskenus in my circle. You know, might just spin around in its living room trying to figure out what the fuck it's doing. That yeah, it's going to all happen again and again and again and again. And instead of happening in a nice civilized place, it's going to happen in a terribly dirty, awful place. Whatever. But I mean, this fucking bullshit. Okay, because you can't convince anybody of anything, it means nobody can. Is that what you're saying? Whatever you're saying, you're just being a naysayer and a nitpicker and a useless pile of shit. I mean, the first job of anti-natalism should be to stomp you people out. Let's get rid of these fence sitters and these wishy-washies, these useless soldiers. Oh, I don't know the morality of this war. Fuck you then. Go home. Get the hell out of our way. You're just mud. You're useless. Alright, anyway. To get along with life and push some personal gain, and those are first world, highly educated people. So I just think that's horseshit. So I don't think you know too many educated people, frankly. I don't think you can make a smart argument. That's why you're losing. So you're just saying because you can't convince anybody of anything, it's because they're unconvincible. When no, you suck. There, that's the simple answer. Still, let's hope that life is defeated. Well, it's not gonna happen through hope, and it certainly is going to happen through, again, you people who can't send a clear signal and can't make a clear argument. Instead, are just going to talk about how difficult the job is instead of just doing it. Glory to death. Well, that's a useless pile of crap, right? It's not about dying, shithead. It's one of the biggest problems is people misunderstand that you don't die when you're not being born. It's not the same as dying, shithead. Dying sucks. Death sucks. That's a truth. There's nothing to glorify about it. Alright, yes, inmendham understands that religion is obscuring the truth for people, but he doesn't understand why people are deluded by religion. Well, I think I do, and that's what I'm pointing out, is the civilized world, the delusion is thin. You know, it's very superficial. You know, they pick up litter in their churches, but they really don't do any religion in them anymore. You know, it's the third world. That's the religion's the problem. You know, the fanatics, the ones who aren't doing it just out of tradition. You know, they're doing it with some sort of still connected to it passion, and mainly because it's self-serving. Gangs, you win as a gang. You know, so the religious gangs have power. Obscuring the truth for people, but he doesn't understand why people. Okay, and many of the so-called atheists aren't a great deal better. Oh, but you do know the secret. Okay, cool. A lot of them don't even support the rational right to die. I don't know what the fuck that has to do with anything. So you imply atheists aren't catching a clue when, well, no, they have the one clue, but yeah, each clue requires you to do some work. Okay, you know, the facts just don't tumble together. You have to keep working at them. You know, you have to keep looking for the truth to find it. Alright, that should be given, but right now it seems that the religious strife for life protection is being reformed into psychological one. No, what's happening right now is, unfortunately, idiocracy. That's what's happening right now. Okay, is nations that were getting intelligent and sophisticated in what they were doing have imported a bunch of people who vote for retards, and so it's dooming us. because it's empowered all the dumb fucks. The dumb fucks are made more powerful. It's like the idiots in Arkansas were irrelevant, and now all of a sudden they're relevant because we've imported a bunch more idiots to take their to vote with them. All right. Anyway, where was I? In psychology now, they even believe that a suicide can trigger other suicides. Well, they've always made irrational arguments, and so that's not going to go away. But I would argue that probably most psychologists, if you interviewed them and did this and that, they'd recognize that some people do commit suicide for a good reason. I mean, it's a perfectly rational act from their perspective. But anyway, people can experience the futility of life, and counseling is right away put in place. And what is the counseling? I mean, it's baby talk, so it's not of any value, and it doesn't do anything, and it doesn't change outcomes and all of that stuff. Nobody's reformed by counseling. Get real. But the truth is that people are such hypocrites in there. Like I said, I mean, Snake Plissken, so, you know, you see, was on a hunger strike a few days ago, and he, you know, can't live, I can't do this, you know. But it's all this bullshit. I mean, it's all playing with the idea in this, you know, silly kind of way. And you know, that's what demeans the reality for some people, is the other people just seeking attention. The same psychology of life protection will be attributed to euthanasia. It will be simply seen as dangerous, disregarding all reason for it. Yeah, that's the argument from the religious people. That's been around forever. You know, if you know, this is a barn door from their perspective. And if you open the barn door, it's going to go open really wide, and it's actually a fact. I mean, it really is. And then all this stuff is you're going to have to be accountable for making these procreation decisions and all the rest of this stuff, because people are going to recognize that, oh yeah, we can't keep pretending that we have some real argument that life is good no matter what, because it isn't. It can absolutely suck. And there's no God defending any of this crap, but that's all coming out of the religious kooks. And like I said, we were already defeated religion in the civilized world, and then we just invited all the religious kooks to come live with us and ruin our democracies. So, you know, can't say much. I mean, you know, it's clear where the trend was going, and you know, first it was the Republicans, the conservatives, who invited all the cheap labor in to drive wages down, and then all of a sudden it became some kind of insane liberal cause to collect more huddled masses of morons who are going to vote against you unless you become religious. So I mean, yes, the liberal parties are becoming the antithesis of what they were. All right. It's kind of like the unions invested in the stock market. I mean, it just doesn't make any rational sense. Anyway, I'll try not to associate with we when we are the problem, a person, fine. I'll try not to associate with we when we are the problem, a person, fine. I don't know what the fuck that could mean. This was a great exchange, more of this please. I think it was a waste of time, frankly, but I mean, anytime you get me talking, it's got to have some value, right? So, yes, me making the arguments is valuable. Yeah. But yeah, I didn't see anything from the other side that had any value. All right, Gary mentioned an inevitable result of human intelligence, but if that is true, why do we care about promoting these ideas in our time? So, this idiot thinks you can persuade people by not doing any work. No, I mean, my argument is this is the world changed because people are willing to persuade people, right? I mean, you know, you have to work for these rights. Women had to go out and get their right to vote. You know, they had to get the freedom to use contraceptives. All of these things, causes had to be fought for. So that's why you have to make the argument, you idiot. It doesn't evolve out of nowhere. It evolves because the meme becomes stronger and stronger, and then people's group psychology takes over, and all the sheep will go the right way. You know, there's a lot of people who are just sheep. They just go where the sheep they admire go, and they'll just follow them. So you have to understand that's a big part of this, is really just getting the herd master organisms, the alphas, to go the right way, and then the betas will just follow along. But you have to do it with work. You can't, it just doesn't happen. I'm not saying it's inevitable, like nobody has to go to the war, but we can win the war. No, I'm arguing we can win the war, but yeah, we have to go to the war and fight it. If we're not going to go to the war and fight it, well, then we can't win. Oh, amazing. These people are so stupid. Like, it wasn't inevitable we were going to win World War II if it wasn't also inevitable that people were motivated to go fight it. All right, promoting these ideas in our time, if the ones in charge of pressing the button will realize anyway later. So they're not going to realize anyway. They're going to realize because, yes, we built that perspective, one voice at a time. It was argued, defended, and won. So you have to win all the little battles to win the war. These people are amazing. I mean, this must be one of these nihilist nuts. I mean, you don't rationally connect anything, do you? Determinism doesn't mean it happens without evolution. Evolution is part of the determinism. The little events that take place are all necessary. It can't take place unless you do all the little connecting of all the little dots of the process. So without the process, it's like a conveyor belt. You can put the parts over here, and then you have the finished car over here. Well, if you don't turn the conveyor belt on, and you don't do the work of putting the car together, there won't be any car. Oh, God. People are just so fucking stupid. Don't put off until tomorrow what you can do today, Benjamin Franklin. Well, that just about says it, doesn't it? Also reduces the suffering overall if you start earlier. Many Marxists also thought the victory of revolutionary socialism was inevitable, and yet, well, yeah, that's a tricky one. I mean, inevitable in the sense that, yes, intelligence will figure out that monarchy is bad. It just takes a while, right? So, I mean, there's still people defending monarchy. They're defending the same thing. Like, there's some people who should be born privileged, that they should have a privileged life and a privileged existence, and they should have these tools to control us, and they still think that makes sense somehow, that a society that allows that is a sensible and rational society. When, yeah, I'd obviously say, yeah, they'll figure that out. That it's inevitable that anything that's really going to be, you could call an intelligence, would know it makes absolutely no sense, to allow people to cheat in any kind of game. And clearly this is a game, an active game, and part of the essential process of the game is actually earning it. Right? You just don't give people rewards for accomplishing nothing. You reward things that you want to encourage, not things that are useless. And it's useless to reward somebody for falling out of a vagina. That's just too stupid. So they should have to actually do something of merit to earn these privilege points. So you could argue that that's the nature of socialism or Marxism. It's a recognition that exploitation is eating your own. It's a cannibalism. So exploitation is just cannibalism. And so, yeah, that understanding, I think, is inevitable, frankly. And so saying, and yet, well, yeah, it takes time. We still haven't gotten rid of the religion thing. Do you think that that over the progress of time that there really will be some aliens who have a starship and they're going to have a cross in it? They're actually going to have a picture of Muhammad in it or something? I don't think so. All right. True. Gary did put it well this time. I don't know what that means, but they won't realize what without ephilism taking off. Well, I'm just saying that all of this is the argument is that these are the facts. The facts are evolution. The facts are this is an insanely expensive. We would never vote for it. If you had to vote, if you had to actually kill all the children that are being killed by the process, that you wouldn't take the job. You just like the people eating meat, if they had to go and slaughter the animals and torture them and poke them with sticks in the pen and do all the horrible things, they couldn't do it, and they wouldn't, so they wouldn't eat it. So I mean, yes, the logical, where the doing justice to the truth and the facts will, if a person has that as a priority, they can't miss getting the right answer. And if they're willing to compromise the facts and the truth to live their delusion that they're special and they're magical and that they have some reason why they don't have to be vulnerable to the horrors of existence, and that their immunity means it doesn't exist, or some kind of notions, that's the only way you can evade it, is by having some kind of completely irrational crap as your mantra. And as soon as you get rid of that irrational crap, the truth will be able to bang you right in the face. All right, I vote for inmendham versus Benatar for the next debate. It would be just interesting to have a conversation with Benatar and weed out some of the ways, even the steps of realization, the pieces of the puzzle and putting them together. Because Benatar's kind of private about that. He doesn't really explain. And so I think that's worth something. I mean, every individual gets there through a different mechanism of enlightenment, where the little light goes off and they say, oh shit, I didn't realize what a selfish fuck I am. Oh fuck, I didn't realize I'm supposed to be productive here on earth. If I make more of a mess than I clean up, that means I suck. My performance sucks. Ooh, that's not good. So I can't hurt more things than I prevent from being hurt. And I have all these obligations. I mean, that kind of process is the process, I think. Is that whole humbling of your existence, turning your existence not into your, I'm fighting dragons, I'm a hero story, into the story of, oh, I'm just a selfish ass. And it, and then it involves all the other little catches, like Snake Plissness. He's almost 40, and he's all caught up in love. Love is really dangerous. It really can fuck you up, this need thing. It is another one of the great tragedies, is that it has this beautifulness to it, but it's so evil and so toxic. It's like a beautiful, like the worst poison in the world, but it has a perfect molecular structure that's like diamond or something. And so it's this insidious, double-edged, well, that's the wrong way to put it, the poison apple kind of thing. I don't know, something like the perfect apple, but it's poison. Because it's such a crass thing. What it's really made out of is all your insecurities, all of your problems, and these are all internal psychological problems where you're just repairing all damage to your psyche, to your ego, and that somehow accomplishing this thing, having this thing, possessing this thing will somehow make you whole again. It's a way of you can earn something the right way, and then you can earn it in this cheaty kind of way, and it's like this is a cheap way to become accomplished. And it's but the accomplishment is just undoing the humiliation of failure. Yeah, somehow you can get out of being a failure by possessing, somebody else's soul and physical body. Something like that. It's just a trap. I mean, it's just a dependency. It's a kind of heroin, blah, 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 blah. It's just another drug. He should know that, right? He's a drug expert. He should know. It's just a drug. Anyway. Dry out. Get yourself free. Figure it out. It's not going to solve the problem. It's just going to make some. Alright, anyway. So that's probably enough blah, blah, blah. Yeah, probably is. Yeah, I think it's enough. So till the next time and such, so forth and whatnot.